Good morning. The Iowa Utilities Commission is now in session. I am Chair Sarah Martz, and I'm joined today by Commissioner Josh Burns and Commissioner Eric Helland. It's 9 a.m. on February 18th of 2026, and this is the time set for the Commission's monthly meeting. At the end of the meeting, again, we will have designated time for public comments. Public comments must be made in person and are to be no more than 3 minutes for each individual who chooses to speak. There's a sign-in sheet in the lobby, so if you haven't had a chance to sign in, please see our staff in the lobby to do that. And I will go over these details again when we get to the public comment portion of the agenda. So first up, we'll begin with a motion to approve previous commission meeting minutes. I move for the approval of prior commission meeting minutes. Are there any objections? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. And the next item on the agenda is a safety minute with Mr. Preston.
Good morning, Chair Martz and Commissioners Burns and Helen. I'm Larry Preston, an engineer with the Electric Safety and Engineering Bureau. Wanted to provide you with a safety minute or important brief reminders related to transmission lines and substations. Substations and transmission lines have a set of unique rules that are strictly enforced by the governing utility, municipality, or cooperative. By design, transmission lines and substations have exposed wires and energized components. In your neighborhood, the typical distribution line has voltages ranging from 4,000 volts to 25,000 volts. Inside the substations, the voltage range is from 69,000 to 161,000. Most homes operate at 240 volts. You are likely aware that in the metro area alone, there have been a few incidents in recent months in which citizens have been injured when coming into contact with electrified lines in substations or down power lines in residential areas. The IUC believes it is important to share safety tips as a reminder that staying away from electric lines, whether they appear to be live or not, is critical to avoid a power outage or even worse, serious injury or death. I want to focus on 3 areas: overhead transmission lines, underground transmission lines, and substations. Overhead transmission lines. Severe weather or even a sudden wind gust can cause a line to come loose. Sometimes a broken pole can lead to line breakage. If you see a down power line outside your home or on any property where it is accessible to the public, call 911 immediately to report it to law enforcement, and they will send someone to inspect the line. Never touch the down power line or anything that is in contact with the line, and always stay at least 40 feet away from the down power line. Similarly, don't ever attempt to climb a transmission tower. Next slide. Next are underground power lines. We also refer to these as hidden power lines because they are buried in yards, under sidewalks, or under streets. Whether you're planting a tree, installing a mailbox or a fence, build a deck, Iowa law requires you to submit a utility locate ticket first. It's as simple as calling 811. The project's location will be marked with paint or flags within 48 hours, and then you can start your project. Iowa's one-call law is designed to protect excavators and do-it-yourselfers from serious injury and can avoid infrastructure damage or an outage that results from hitting a buried line. Protect yourself and others from unintentionally disrupting underground utility lines like water, electricity, and natural gas by making the call. It's free and it's the law. Next slide. The final category is for substations. Iowa's utility substations are the critical interconnection that transforms switches and controls electricity flow by connecting transmission lines to distribution lines. They are marked with high voltage warnings, and ignoring those warnings to access a substation is extremely dangerous. Never touch, climb on, or tamper with substation fencing. that critical protective barrier is in place for your safety. Never attempt to remove or steal components such as copper or any other material from a substation or other utility infrastructure. Copper is a conductor that is used to deliver electricity. Stealing copper may steal your life. The Utilities Commission is providing these reminders to keep people safe around electricity. Removal of equipment from substations or power line facilities can impact the electric grid and cause unsafe operations. Intentional damage of transmission facilities or associated property can result in prosecution under applicable state and federal laws. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Any questions for Mr. Preston?
So, Mr. Preston, thank you for that. So in addition to, we want to protect people with their health and safety, what about their pocketbooks? Like what happens if I'm a landowner and I hit a fiber and split that fiber? Who's paying? If it's my fault and I didn't do a one call.
You would be paying for the repair.
Exactly. And just out of curiosity, do you know what fiber splicing costs these days?
I do not know.
It's not cheap. So in addition to people's safety, and we want people to be healthy and safe, I can tell you from experience, not that I hit one, but from managing a utility, it's super expensive in terms of having people pay for those fixes when all they had to do was a one call. So thank you for this. I think especially as we're getting into the spring season and we have people wanting to plant trees and people wanting to get out there and start digging holes in the ground. The timing is perfect on this. I see last night at Home Depot, they were unloading semi-loads of trees last night. So it's already starting. So appreciate this timely message.
Yeah, and just wanted to, I guess, emphasize the safety message there. I don't think, I think I had been working for a utility for quite a while before I realized how many pieces of a substation are actually energized. It's not just the wires that go into that, it's the structure a lot of times. So those danger signs are very serious, and there's very real risks there. And I've also had to turn away a contractor at my house who didn't do a locate before he came to plant a tree. So these things are very important to keep in mind. So anything else? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Preston. Next, we will go to Mr. Giddens, who will present on RTO and federal regional updates. Mr. Giddens.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to provide you with an update on our federal and regional work here at the IUC. To continue our ongoing effort to educate the public about our federal and regional partners, this slide is a review of our federal energy regulatory partner, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. FERC regulates interstate energy transmission, licenses hydropower projects, approves interstate energy infrastructure projects, and ensures electric grid reliability. And also, this is a quick review of what our regional partners, called regional transmission organizations, or RTOs, are. RTOs operate large regional electricity systems, of which almost all of our Iowa electric utilities are members. The RTOs operate the bulk electric transmission system, managing the flow of electricity and maintaining reliability throughout the system. They also perform planning services for future system needs. The RTOs, of which our Iowa utilities are members, are the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, or MISO, and the Southwest Power Pool, or SPP. This slide shows images of the MISO and SPP regions. For reference, approximately 90% of Iowa's electricity demand, including that of both of our rate-regulated investor-owned utilities, Mid-American Energy and Interstate Power and Light, is in the MISO system, and the other approximately 10% of our demand is in the SPP system. And this month, I also want to highlight the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC. NERC is an independent nonprofit entity designated as the Electric Reliability Organization for North America, covering the United States, Canada, and parts of Mexico. NERC is tasked with ensuring the reliability and security of the bulk power system, the backbone high voltage power grid that serves over 400 million people. NERC develops and enforces rigorous, legally binding reliability standards, including critical infrastructure protection and cybersecurity, with the authority to impose significant fines for noncompliance. And NERC monitors the electric grid in real time, conducts seasonal adequacy assessments, and leads industry-wide efforts to mitigate physical and cyber threats. And now for updates on federal and regional issues we're currently working on. I don't have any updates specifically for FERC, but there are items in the MISO and SPP updates that reference FERC. For MISO updates, first, regarding Winter Storm Fern. On January 24th, MISO declared 2 maximum generation events. To maintain grid stability, MISO accessed emergency load modifying resources, or LMRs, curtailment of load, and emergency power purchases from neighboring RTOs. Also, MISO experienced a day-ahead market software failure that prevented the publication of emergency prices for 11 hours on January 24th. This delay meant imports were not properly incentivized during the height of the stress event. Next steps for MISO. MISO is currently auditing the load modifying resource responses and this software failure that occurred. More information will be presented at the MISO board meeting in March and at the Resource Adequacy Subcommittee in April. The next MISO update is on the ongoing U.S. Department of Energy emergency orders to keep the Consumers Energy Campbell coal-fired power plant in Michigan operational beyond its scheduled retirement date in May of last year. The DOE's third 90-day extension expired February 17th, and late yesterday, the DOE issued its 4th order to keep the plant operational for another 90 days. Consumers Energy recently petitioned FERC for $41.98 million to cover the first 90-day extension period. And a reminder, that's last May, the first 90 days starting last May. It's important to note that this figure, the $42 million, is net costs incurred after taking into account revenue generated from energy sales into the MISO market. FERC previously approved a methodology that allocates these costs across MISO zones 1 through 7. Iowa is in zone 3, so Iowa ratepayers will pay a portion of the cost that FERC approves for recovery. The IUC, other states, the Organization of MISO States, and various public interest groups filed notices of intervention at FERC to monitor these costs. Moving forward, Consumers Energy is expected to file additional cost recovery petitions, just like the one that I just talked about, for each of the subsequent 90-day extensions under these DOE orders. And again, we're in the 4th order now. And next, for SPP updates. The SPP Regional States Committee met in Little Rock, Arkansas on February 2nd to vote on several policy revision request items that were then sent to and passed by the SPP Board of Directors. Noteworthy items are demand response and peak demand assessment. Effective 2027, all utilities can register demand response as economic or reliability products. There is now a new post-season peak demand assessment where utilities exceeding their weather normalized forecast by more than 3% will face deficiency payments. A region-wide cap of 2,152 megawatts was set for load modifying resources for 2027. The next revision request is a policy called CHILLS, which is an acronym that stands for Conditional High Impact Large Loads. This policy allows utilities with adequate generation to connect large loads to the grid before related transmission upgrades are completed. These loads must be immediately curtailable by SPP until upgrades to the transmission system are complete. And the third revision request the Regional States Committee approved is related to cost of new entry, or CONE, The RSC unanimously approved increasing the cone value from $85 per kilowatt year to $139.85 per kilowatt year, reflecting current inflationary and construction cost factors. And now for NERC updates. And we talked about what NERC is earlier. NERC released its 2025 Long-Term Reliability Assessment, or LTRA, last month. The LTRA report categorizes the MISO region as high risk for reliability issues in the next 5 years, a designation that conflicts with MISO's own resource adequacy assessments and the annual OMS MISO survey of MISO's member utilities. Among several points of contention with the LTRA report, and perhaps the most significant issue, is that NERC's assumptions do not account for MISO's Expedited Resource Addition Study, or ERAS, projects, which are expected to add significant and largely dispatchable generation capacity to the system in the near future. Also, NERC has stated that the LTRA is a risk assessment and not a risk prediction. Many have been concerned that the report will nevertheless be viewed by some as a prediction of future reliability issues and will be used to justify actions like the Department of Energy's emergency orders to keep coal-fired power plants operational beyond their scheduled retirement dates. In fact, the DOE cited NERC's 2025 LTRA as a primary justification in its order late yesterday to continue to keep the Consumers Energy Campbell plant in Michigan operational for the fourth 90-day period beyond its scheduled retirement date in May of last year. And finally, I wanted to report that Chair Marks participated in the FERC NARUC Current Issues Collaborative in Washington, D.C. on February 11th. She's one of 10 state regulatory utility commissioners from around the country on this panel who shared their state-specific perspectives on the impact of load growth on affordability with the 5 FERC commissioners. We're fortunate to have Chair Marks' voice on this important national panel, so stay tuned for forthcoming information on the next meeting of the FERC NARUC Current Issues Collaborative. And that's all I have today. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
Just one quick clarification, just for the sake of folks listening in. Load modifying resource, or an LMR, and we love acronyms in this industry. So those of you that come monthly and listen to this, you're going to become experts on this stuff when it's all said and done. So what's a good example of a load modifying resource, and what role does it play in the grid?
So a load modifying resource would be an electric customer that has agreed through a contract to be able to turn down essentially their demand. So you could, what we typically see is large industrial customers that have the ability within their system to turn down their load or shift that load to a different time of day when the system really could use that. So when the system is being stressed through high demand, they will have agreed through a contract to turn it down when called upon.
So at home, I try to tell my wife and my daughter that we're a load modifying resource on our smart thermostat. And so that's why I keep it low, because I'm trying to reduce our energy demand. So we can be LMRs on the home front if we want to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Giddens, thank you for the update. I was just going to add as well on the Winter Storm Fern. You mentioned that MISO will be giving some updates and kind of lessons learned on that at their March board meeting. Is that correct?
Right.
And I just wanted to also add, we did have some communication with our utilities and with MISO just this last week on some lessons learned. It seems like there's some gas coordination issues that could be cleaned up that may have made Winter Storm Fern a little bit less stressful for those operating the grid. And so we'll be following up with MISO just to make sure that those get addressed as much as they can.
That's
So,
right. Yeah. Thank you for adding that.
okay. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Giddens. And we will go next to Ms. Raby for the litigation status report. Ms. Raby. Thank you, Chair Mark, for the additional staff and members of the public.
I'm Michelle Raby. I'm here with the litigation update. The first case is Enterprise Products Operating versus the Iowa Utilities Commission. Enterprise is challenging the IUC's order, which imposes civil penalty of $200,000 for each of 7 pipelines and 2 storage facilities that had not been properly permitted since Enterprise purchased them in 2002. So the total fine imposed was $1.8 million. Enterprise appealed the Polk County District Court's decision, which upheld the IUC's decision to the Iowa Supreme Court, who then transferred the case to the Iowa Court of Appeals. Oral argument was held at the Court of Appeals on October 7th of last year. The court issued its ruling on October 29th, which affirmed the district court's decision. Enterprise filed a petition for further review on November 18th of 2025, and the Iowa Supreme Court granted further review on February 5th. That's the significant update since the last monthly meeting. That means that the Supreme Court is going to take a look at the Court of Appeals decision. In this case, they can uphold it, they can change it, they can change part of it, they can kind of do whatever they want with it. And no argument date has been set yet, but if granted, it looks like the Supreme Court is scheduling in mid-April. The next one is Shelby County versus the Iowa Utilities Commission, otherwise known as the Summit case. This case, as I think everyone knows, involves a multi-party challenge to the IUC's order of June 25th, 2024, which conditionally granted Summit Carbon Solutions petition to build and operate a 688-mile hazardous liquid pipeline through 29 counties in Iowa. On September 19th of last year, Summit filed a motion to remand the case back to the commission to reopen the record to allow for additional evidence. Summit was asking the commission to amend its order to modify the route requirements and to change the diameter of certain segments of pipeline, among other conditions. The IUC took no formal position on the motion. Oral argument was held on October 10th, which was the date originally scheduled for argument on the merits of the appeal. And the court granted the remand on December 19th, 2025, which sent the case back to the commission for further proceedings on Summit's petition to amend the original order on this docket, the 2021 docket. And between December 23rd and January 2nd, all petitioners filed motions for reconsideration. Summit filed a resistance on January 2nd. The district court denied the petitioner's motions for reconsideration on January 16th and issued an order clarifying that the main unforeseen event, which in the court's opinion entitled Summit to the remand, was South Dakota's passage of the bill, which blocked the use of eminent domain for carbon capture pipelines. The development, another significant development on this case since our last meeting was that on February 13th, petitioners Hirth et al. Filed a notice of interlocutory appeal asking the Iowa Supreme Court to revisit the issue of the remand. An interlocutory appeal is where one of the parties asks the higher courts to review a decision other than the final decision of the court. So in this case, Hirth is just asking the higher court to look at this issue of whether or not the judge should have granted the remand back to the commission. This is not an automatic right, and parties can file a resistance. The legal standard for the granting of an interlocutory appeal is found in the Iowa Rules of Appellate Procedure. It's whether the, quote, ruling or order involves substantial rights and will materially affect the final decision, and that a determination of its correctness before trial on the merits will better serve the interests of justice. Anyone who wants to file a resistance, any party, any respondent that wants to file a resistance, that's due within 14 days of February 13th. After those are filed, the Iowa Supreme Court will decide whether to consider the interlocutory appeal or not. If they don't wish to consider it, the case is just denied, and the case kind of proceeds as if the interlocutory appeal wouldn't have happened. If they do take the interlocutory appeal, then there'd be a briefing and argument schedule, and that is generally kind of a lengthy process. The next case is Swan Lake versus Iowa Utilities Commission. This case arose from Swan Lake Road Farm's appeal of the commission's granting of ITC Midwest petition for an electric franchise for approximately 4.8 miles of transmission line in Johnson County, Iowa. The district court issued its ruling on September 30th of last year. It affirmed the IUC's decision to grant the franchise, but it also held because the Iowa statute, which is 306.46, it's actually a Department of Transportation statute, that statute, which expanded the scope of a public road easement, was not enacted until 2004, but the public road right-of-way in this Swan Lake case predated 2004. It went back to at least the 80s, that the utilities actions in this situation constituted a taking for which the landowners or Swan Lake Road Farms were entitled to just compensation. Both Swan Lake and ITC Midwest appealed the district court's decision to the Iowa Supreme Court. The petitioner's briefs were filed on January 13th, 2026. The IUC's brief and cross-appellant ITC Midwest brief were filed on February 12th, so last week. And petitioner Swan Lake now has the opportunity to file a reply brief if it wishes to. The next steps on that are that the Iowa Supreme Court decides whether to keep the case or transfer it to the Court of Appeals and whether or not to grant oral argument. And neither of those things have occurred yet. The final case on the litigation docket is Hawkeye Land Company versus IUC and Metronet. Again, this is the case where Hawkeye Land is challenging the April 17th, 2025 decision of the commissions, which determined that Metronet's crossing at a certain intersection in Mitchellville fell within the scope of Iowa Code Section 476.27, and that Hawkeye Land Company is thus entitled to damages in the amount of $750 for Metronet's railroad crossing at this location. Answers have previously been filed by the commission and Metronet. The IUC prepared and filed the agency record on October 23rd, 2025. But then on January 21st of 2026, Hawkeye Land filed an amended petition, which was accepted by the court. It's not a significant change from the original petition. It cleans things up a little bit and has a couple expanded allegations in it. So the commission and Metronet will now file answers to the amended petition, and the commission will ask the Lynn County District Court for a briefing schedule. Those are the next steps in that. And happy to take questions. That's it for the litigation update.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Raby?
Thank you for that. If we go back to the summit, I just have a question. So the interlocutory appeal, so you said there's 14 days on that, and then, but there's no statutory deadlines or anything in terms of how long the courts have to decide on whether or not they grant it or deny it, correct?
That's correct. The only statutory deadlines are on when to file your resistances and things like that. But there is no timeline on the court for how long they can just take to decide. First, they have to decide whether or not they're going to take it, and then to decide whether they want oral argument and when to put it on the schedule. So it's usually, it's not, interlocutory appeals aren't something that are dealt with. They're not really frequent. They're a little bit unusual, but it's a slow process.
So you say slow, how slow?
My best guess is if they're not going to accept the interlocutory appeal, I would think within 6 to 8 weeks, we would know whether or not they're going to take it. If they take it and want it briefed and to hear argument on it, I think minimum 6 months, and that might be generous.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Raby.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Ms. Clapham to present about the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Emily Clapham, and I am an engineer with the IUC's Pipeline Safety and Engineering Bureau. Today, I am going to give a brief introduction to PHMSA, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, and the IUC's role in Iowa pipeline safety. PHMSA is the federal agency operating under the umbrella of the Department of Transportation, responsible for developing and enforcing regulations for the safe, reliable, and environmentally sound operation of the United States 2.6 million mile pipeline transportation system. In order to more effectively regulate pipeline systems, Congress created a framework that provides state agencies the authority for regulation of intrastate pipeline facilities under annual certification with PHMSA. In Iowa, the Iowa Utilities Commission holds this certification, which allows the IUC to implement a pipeline safety program on behalf of PHMSA for interstate and intrastate natural gas pipelines. The IUC does not have a certification for other pipeline types, including hazardous liquid pipelines like carbon dioxide pipelines. The safety jurisdiction for these types of pipelines remains with PHMSA at the federal level. As you can see on this map here, which shows both transmission natural gas pipelines in blue and hazardous liquid pipelines in red, the footprint of pipelines in Iowa is fairly extensive. Under the natural gas certification, while wearing our PHMSA hat, the IUC inspects the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of interstate natural gas pipelines in Iowa. This includes gas gathering, transmission, and distribution systems that are located entirely within the state. We have 5 IUC inspectors conducting this work throughout the state. During the inspection, one or more IUC inspectors reviews facilities such as pressure control equipment and meters to ensure they are being maintained and protected properly. Up here on the screen, we have a couple examples of meters either at businesses or homes. And then we also have an example of that pressure protection, overpressure protection system I talked about, also known as a regulator station. The IUC also inspects the operators of these pipeline systems to ensure they comply with federal natural gas pipeline operator requirements. For example, each natural gas operator is required to have programs that ensure personnel working on pipelines are adequately qualified, manage pipeline integrity, prohibit the use of certain drugs, and prevent alcohol misuse among pipeline personnel, effectively communicate key pipeline safety points to the public impacted by their pipelines, and effectively respond to emergencies, among others. Each inspection conducted by the IUC's pipeline safety team involves a review of operating records, procedures, and field observations, all of which are conducted using a set of questions developed by PHMSA to ensure the safety requirements are being met. If the IUC identifies an area where a natural gas pipeline operator is not complying with the requirements, the operator is issued a letter in the IUC's electronic filing system, or EFS, summarizing the issue and identifying steps the operator may take to come into compliance. These issues are tracked by the IUC pipeline safety team to ensure all issues are resolved in a timely manner. In 2025, the IUC pipeline safety team spent cumulatively 624 days inspecting natural gas pipeline systems and operators for compliance with safety requirements. With a team of 10 inspectors and engineers, this averages to each team member spending nearly 12.5 working weeks directly engaging with natural gas operators to ensure Iowa's pipelines are meeting safety requirements. That does not include writing reports, issuing letters, following up on violations, and various other office activities that are done to support the pipeline safety program. During the 2025 inspections, the IUC inspected half of the natural gas operators in Iowa, which meets the goal of inspecting operators on a 2-year rotation. In 2025, the IUC identified 178 probable violations of safety code and verified the correction of 235 outstanding violations, including some that were identified during previous year's inspections. The IUC pipeline safety team takes great pride in serving Iowans by ensuring the safe, reliable operation of natural gas pipelines in Iowa, which keep many Iowa homes warm and provides a portion of the energy needed to fuel Iowa's industries. We appreciate the opportunity to speak at the IUC's monthly meeting and welcome any questions from the commissioners at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Clapham. Any questions?
Thank you for that. And just kudos to our safety and engineering team. I've been on the other side of the fence on this and had to do the programs and had to go through the inspections and whatnot. And it's a lot of work. I mean, it's intense for the operator to have all your I's dotted and T's crossed, and the inspectors do a great job of going through those records and making sure. And I mean, I had to dig up a line that was not pressure tested long enough. We were 5 minutes short of the pressure test time and we had to dig it up and redo it. So at the time, I thought it was a little excessive, but now looking back, that was the right thing to do. So the team does a great job. I think maybe a good example that you could share with us and people listening today, maybe using the Enterprise issue that happened last week with that gas pipeline. I believe it was a propane line potentially, but just how does that, I think that's a good example of like what role does the IUC play in that? Like what is our involvement? I just think it's a good example since it's in the news recently.
Yep, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. So for anybody who's not aware, there was a pipeline accident near Brighton, Iowa on Saturday. There was a liquefied petroleum gas or propane ethane pipeline that ruptured. I want to note that this was a hazardous liquid pipeline. And so as I mentioned towards the beginning of the presentation, we have the safety jurisdiction for natural gas pipelines. So while the IUC permits hazardous liquid pipelines, this particular accident occurred on a pipeline that's not within the IUC's safety jurisdiction. So for that particular incident, PHMSA is the lead investigator. So they actually have an accident investigation division that mobilizes when there is an incident or an accident to that degree. So PHMSA sent one of their members of that team to conduct an investigation. PHMSA also invited two of our inspectors, Paul and Eric, to participate in that investigation so they could get some hands-on experience with how to investigate an incident or an accident like that. Now, if there was an incident, which we pray there never is, but if there's an incident on a natural gas pipeline in Iowa, the IUC would be the agency conducting the primary investigation for that. And so each year we have hopefully no incidents, but occasionally there is an incident that's reportable to PHMSA and reportable to the IUC. So most times that involves the mobilization of one of our inspectors to conduct an investigation into the who, what, where, when, how the incident occurred, working with an operator to determine what could have been done to prevent an incident like that, and then sharing the lessons learned, not just with the operator, but with our counterparts at the National Association of Pipeline Safety Representatives, with PHMSA, and with, in some instances, other natural gas operators. So that's our role in an incident, again, particularly with the ongoing investigation for the propane pipeline that ruptured, which was a hazardous liquid pipeline. That investigation is being done by PHMSA, but we'll stay actively involved in tracking their investigation so that we can bring any updates to the commission as needed.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Ms. Clapham.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we will have a legislative update from Ms. Weisenbach. Ms. Weisenbach.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Weisenbach. I'm the Legislative Liaison at the Iowa Utilities Commission, and I'm going to provide an update of the bills that have either cleared a policy committee and have like kind of surpassed that first funnel threshold requirement, or bills that are considered funnel proof. This week is considered the first funnel week where policy bills have to get through a policy committee in order to remain under consideration for the session. We've monitored a variety of bills this session, and there are still 2 meetings of commerce committees, which are the committees that primarily handle bills related to our jurisdiction. So those committees will still meet this week, and there may be other bills that would be on this list once we consider what has passed the funnel. So first, 2 of IUC's pre-filed bills have cleared the House Commerce Committee. And the first one was a bill that we pre-filed and was introduced last year, but was not passed last year. And that relates to the telecom jurisdiction of the commission and certain institutions and clarifying that that jurisdiction only applies to the institutions serving incarcerated persons at correctional facilities due to the commission not kind of having a role in those other institutions anymore because of competition being there, and also makes changes to the form of the electronic franchise or the electric franchise for transmission lines. And so that is one bill, House File 2229, House File 2181. And then one of our pre-file bills this session, House File 2229, is titled Executive Director by the Legislative Services Agency. It changes the position of the Chief Operating Officer to an Executive Director and clarifies that the commission evaluates and provides direction to the Executive Director. And that's another one that has kind of cleared that funnel threshold. Some other bills that impact IUC's jurisdiction through statutory language. We've been tracking those primarily to understand the impact to the agency, potential cost, and evaluate kind of under that lens. And we don't take a position for or against these bills. There are two bills, one of the House and Senate regarding electric transmission in interstate highway right-of-way. And that primarily makes changes to the Iowa DOT's process and decision-making, but includes some language to the electric franchise part of the statute that governs the IUC. And those are House File 2228 and Senate File 2214. And next, there are two different bills addressing eminent domain. There's Senate File 2067, which establishes a different process for ensuring exhaustion of voluntary easements for hazardous liquid pipelines and examining route alternatives, various changes to filing requirements and requirements of the company as well as the commission. And then there's House File 2104, which prohibits the use of eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. Next, another piece of legislation focuses on the restoration of agricultural land after an electric transmission line is constructed. And that would involve adding a land restoration plan to the e-franchise process at the IUC, and then also post-construction inspection of the land that was impacted by the transmission line to evaluate kind of compliance with new standards that the bill provides. And it also has a dispute resolution process that the IUC would be involved in the event that the landowner believes that those standards or the plan wasn't followed, and the IUC would have a role there. That's House File 2227. Other legislation relates to the rate regulation of water and wastewater utilities. In Iowa, there's only one water utility that falls in that category, Iowa American Water, and that covers certain system enhancements proposed through the utility and charges to customers that would result in between general rate cases. And those bills are House File 2032 and Senate File 2304. Next, just a few left here, just so you're aware. The next, there's a bill that is a little different about the audio volume of commercial advertisements that are kind of provided by streaming service providers. And in that particular legislation, the IUC would be able to receive complaints from customers about the volume of those commercials being above the volume of the programming, and conduct investigations and have kind of a process to manage that. That is Senate File 2294. And next, there is a bill on electricity emergency related planning and different communications required and kind of coordination required to support state and local emergency response efforts. And with this particular bill, it would ensure that the new companies that might be building transmission in Iowa due to MISO's competitive bidding process would be required to participate in different communication and planning activities. Next, there's a bill pre-filed by the Iowa Economic Development Authority that is funnel proof due to some kind of fees related in the bill, and that pertains to IUC in terms of a new load forecast and electric transmission system expansion analysis that would be conducted through Iowa State University and funded through assessments to utilities that IUC would have a role in kind of describing how that will go. And then the Iowa Economic Development Authority would use those funds to kind of oversee and provide funding to Iowa State for that work. And that would be used, the load forecast and analysis report could be used as evidentiary evidence in proceedings, and that is Senate File 2301. There are a variety of other bills that impact executive branch agencies, and we do track those as well, not to the level of detail, but we'll ensure that we're aware of certain changes that will impact our work. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Weisenbach. Any questions? No. Yep, thank you for your work on that. I'm sure you're excited for funnel deadlines so that you're a little bit less busy. So
Yes.
thank you.
It is a shorter list than the
Yes.
list that is currently underway. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to item number 4 on the agenda, other business. And we're going to start with a quick update on the commission's electronic filing system. So I wanted to make an announcement about something that some of you may have already noticed. We have made some updates to our electronic filing system, and users now need to register and have an account in order to gain access to access files and to file with us. Let's see. Additionally, we have integrated new search guardrails that are commonly implemented in similar systems. These are all just really to maintain the integrity of our software system and make sure that kind of it's working and it's up to speed as we move forward. If you do have any questions or need any assistance with this new kind of mode of filing, our customer service is available to help you. I know they've already received many calls on this, and they can be reached via email, phone, or in person across the lobby. So next up, the commissioners just returned from the NARUC Winter Policy Summit, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Burns to see if he has any updates from the conference.
Yeah, thank you. So as Chair March said, all 3 commissioners did attend the NARUC Winter Policy Summit last week in Washington, D.C. As you may recall, NARUC is the association in which all commissioners across the United States belong to. It's an opportunity to, so basically the conference itself it consists of multiple general sessions. And then you have all the different committees have all their committee meetings. And within the committees, you have a business meeting, which if you have any resolutions or anything like that you'd like to pass, that's where your resolutions come through. And then the committees also have a lot of the breakout sessions, if you will. And so that's an opportunity to, the Committee on Gas has gas-related topics that they'll bring in, a moderator and panelists, and most likely it's the panelists are experts from the industry. They come in to talk about a certain subject area. The general sessions, so for the Winter Policy Summit, since we are in DC, it does give us an opportunity to bring in some of the DC folks that maybe we otherwise won't be able to have just because of logistics. So just for example, at the NARUC Winter Policy Summit last week for some of our general session main speakers, we had the acting undersecretary of the Department of Energy come in and talk about a lot of the Department of Energy things that are going on. You heard Mr. Giddens talk earlier about things like the 202C. And so just kind of giving us updates and kind of some flavor as to what's going on within their department. We had Senator Fisher, who is from Nebraska. We had Senator King from Maine. There was Senator Guthrie or Congressman Guthrie and Congressman Peters, Kentucky and California, respectfully. A lot of these folks are on like your commerce and energy committees. And so we bring in those folks because they have that connection to energy policy, which is important for us to get that insight. And then we had Chairman Sweet from FERC. So she's relatively new in that role. And so she was also one of the speakers at the general session. I thought it would be kind of interesting just to give you a little flavor of, some of the things that do get talked about at NARUC. I think it's important that folks realize kind of some of the topics a little bit. So just kind of give you some of the different breakout sessions. One was called Where Have All the Numbers Gone? Internet of Things, Use of Telephone Numbers. We have a telecom committee. We have folks that, are focused on telecom and connectivity. Building tomorrow's grid, training today's workforce for tomorrow. We talk about workforce issues. It's difficult to find people in the utility industry. It's difficult to find, just take a look at the IUC. We have safety and engineering. We're looking for folks that come out of engineering school. We need attorneys. We have to have the attorneys that understand the utility world. We have folks that do the reg analysis component of this. They're breaking down the economics. And then, you need some of us that can fill these roles as well that have some sort of a utility background or policy background to come to the table. We have multiple sessions that talk about RTOs and resource adequacy. There was a session on electric vehicles. Obviously, nuclear is a big thing that's being talked about. So we had sessions on nuclear energy. We have, keeping power affordable, customer perspective on rising electricity costs. So we really cover the whole gamut of topics when it comes to utilities. I appreciate the fact that a lot of our speakers, especially the political ones, very bipartisan, Democrats, Republicans. I appreciate the fact that our breakout sessions, I attended one of the breakout sessions called Jekyll and Hyde, and it was basically two people on stage, one that was a data center developer and the other person that was kind of the, we'll say, devil's advocate towards data centers, and was really kind of, questioning the data center developer on a lot of the different issues that we hear about. So it really is a very well-rounded conference. It's all perspectives. Everything's on the table for discussion. And just, also the networking that gets to take place and visiting with our other commissioners from other states. No two states are the same when it comes to utility issues. And we're all different and we all have different perspectives. And so it's kind of our chance to share and talk with them about some of the things that they're facing. So all in all, I think it was a very good conference. I always walk away with something that I bring back home and can share with others. So any questions on NARUC?
No, thank you. Thank you for the update. Commissioner Helen, do you have any additional updates?
Not necessarily updates. I would echo much of Commissioner Burns' sentiment. Part of the importance of attending these conferences is states have historically been uniquely positioned to work in the administrative law space, which in reality is the area of law that impacts your life or anyone's life more so than any other sector of law. It is what determines your airline luggage, your driver's license, labeling, safety across the board. And so states have a unique capability in terms of scale to address large problems, but they are small enough and nimble enough that they can tailor those solutions to mitigate unintended consequences and restrictions on individuals' liberties and positions, which makes it imperative that the states get together and have conversations as much as we can to see who is doing what. How are you addressing this challenge? What are you doing in this state? Were we not to do that, it would be quite possible that states on the other side of the continent would come up with an elegant solution to a challenge facing Iowans, and we would be unaware. And so it becomes helpful for us to come out there and have a lot of conversations, not just with industry, but our counterparts and a lot of forward-thinking, theoretical policy folks. And yes, there are people out there whose entire lives are dedicated to researching the economics and the legal side of what we do. So I spend a lot of my time on innovation panels, which is just seeking new ways to do our jobs and finding new and elegant solutions to do it better and do it faster. And sometimes that's not fancy new software. Sometimes that's old technology. Sometimes that's simply a commission looking at things with a different lens. But those conversations help us to constantly question ourselves and figure out how do we continue to serve our role. So that was the primary thrust. The other scarier part was, kind of gathering and assessing what is going on at the jurisdictional level. If you are really bored and want to spend some time researching administrative law, you will find it is a constant tug between local government, state government, and national government. There's no right answer. It varies by jurisdiction. But I have historically favored states for the reasons I already stated. But if you study it historically, there are from time to time ominous clouds that gather on the horizon when the feds start deciding that we need more speed or order in a particular sector. And so, beginning this fall with FERC's advance notice of a proposed rule, the changing of the composition of FERC, the language of the new commissioners that is being used, the continued creative and curious use of the Federal Power Act 202C, NERC's reliability changes. Anyone that has studied administrative law historically will tell you how they are doing things and what they are saying echoes for a long time. And what we are starting to see at the federal level right now is a little chilling. And so there was a lot of conversations amongst our fellow commissioners about what do we do? How do we impact this change? Are we going to be flat out run over? And how do we continue to articulate our position? And how do we explain to those in DC that we think the three of us up here and with the oversight of the legislature, the governor, and the voters have a better idea of how to address problems than perhaps they do in the Beltway. And so it was I think perhaps for me, the most sobering NARUC that I've been to. But I don't think the cake is baked per se. But I do think all eyes are right now on utility-specific electric utility jurisdiction, and I think it's probably a conversation that we will be having in the next year that matters for a generation. So it was enlightening, sometimes a little scary, but also very exciting to see what some of our colleagues are doing across the nation. So other than that, it's pretty boring.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Helland. And yeah, I will just add quickly that as Mr. Giddens mentioned, I did have an opportunity to meet with the 5 FERC commissioners and 9 other state commissioners and have a conversation about affordability in the context of large load growth. I think that was a good conversation and hopefully the start of many more to just talk through those issues with FERC. Because a lot of their decisions end up trickling down to the states in terms of costs that ratepayers in our state pay for things like transmission. So that meeting was recorded. If you're really interested, you can go listen to it. It's about 2.5 hours long. But I think with that, if there are no other comments, we will move on to the next item. So Ms. Tumeyer is going to recognize some of our IUC staff for their years of committed service.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Marks and Commissioners Burns and Helland. Nicole Tumeyer, I'm happy to be here this morning to represent 2 State of Iowa Service Awards to our staff. So as COO, one of the highlights of my job is getting to recognize the achievements of our employees. And a service award is recognizing milestone years on the job. And it's a wonderful way to acknowledge their contributions. So first is Matt Alvarado. Matt is a utility specialist with our Regulatory Analysis Bureau. Matt has been with the IUC for 5 years. Matt is a staff participant for the commission with the Regional Transmission Organization, Southwest Power Pool. So at SPP, he serves as support staff for Commissioner Burns in the cost allocation work group. and other areas of focus at the RTO as needed. His guidance and advice helps the commission stay current on issues with policy or federal changes that ultimately could affect Iowa ratepayers. Matt also is assigned to work on gas and other docket work in the regulatory analysis group. We value his experience and expertise to the regulatory analysis team and his contributions to the commission as a whole. His manager, Wendy McIlvain, says that Matt can always be counted on to volunteer for projects or lend a helping hand. Thank you, Matt, for your work with the agency, and congratulations on 5 years of service. Second is Dana Tate, an administrative support analyst with the Customer Service Bureau. Dana joined the IUC in 2006, so she is being honored for 20 years of service. Dana wears many hats in customer service, with her expertise lying in our electronic filing system, or EFS. Dana has witnessed some significant events throughout her career at the IUC, including first, the move from 350 Maple Street to the current building. 2, the merger of customer service and the Records and Information Center into one bureau. And 3, countless EFS updates and changes. And then lastly, derecho and a pandemic. Dana has always been counted on to assist customers daily, whether it be with filings, processing orders, and handling customer complaints. Her manager, Marie, says that Dana was one of the first people to train her at the IUC, and she has enjoyed seeing her grow in her customer service work. She continues to maintain an excellent sense of detail and pride in her work. Thank you, Dana, for your continued service, and congratulations on this 20-year milestone. So Matt and Dana, the IUC is appreciative of all that you do for the agencies. Please come forward to receive your awards.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tumeyer, and thank you, Matt and Dana, for your service. All right, before we get to public comment, is there any additional business to come before the commission today? Okay. We will move into public comment. So I have the sign-in sheet with me with those individuals who indicated they would like to make comments today. When I call your name, please come up to the podium and be sure to speak clearly into the microphone. A reminder that all comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and verbal comments are not filed in any docket. So if you would like those to be part of the record, you need to file them in the docket. Commissioners cannot address contested case matters, but pending before the commission will be in listening only mode. And commission staff will be sharing the timer for your viewing in front of you, right at the table. All right. First, we have Weston Grow.
First of all, thank you for having the public meetings. Really appreciate being able to see you guys listen to the public, what's going on. First thing I was like, something that's kind of bothered me is when the judge in the Shelby County case stated the facts that he made his findings on, multiple times he all said that South Dakota banned banned CO2 pipelines. And they did not. They just banned the eminent domain for pipelines. So it kind of bothers me that maybe he would have had a different conclusion, or was that just a mistake he made when he stated his conclusions and findings. Then I'd urge you guys not to allow the amendments to the CO2 pipeline to proceed. The commission specifically stated requirements to the permit. Now the pipeline's finding that it's difficult, although not impossible, to proceed. They want you to rescind the requirements after the permit was approved. If they can get to change rules at any time, why bother with permits at all? As far as the routing size and type of pipes and destination, I would think that would all require a new permit because it just changes the whole project from one end to the other. And on the consolidation amendment, I don't think it's fair just to push the dockets that have concern my area into with the other documents. So if I'd have known that they would attend them, then I would followed all the filings for all the other ones. And believe it or not, some of them do have some valuable information in them. Please deny those amendments if you would. Thank you.
Thank you. Layla Christians?
Thank you for listening, members of the commission. My name is Leela Christensen. 3 parcels of my family farm has been targeted in phase 2. And in 2024, this IUC set a clear condition. Summit could not begin construction in Iowa until it secured approvals in North and South Dakota. That wasn't a suggestion, it was a safeguard. Now, because South Dakota has stood up for its farmers and banned eminent domain, Summit is back asking you to move the goalposts. They want you to ignore the failures of their project in our neighboring states and allow them to tear up Iowa soil for a pipeline to nowhere. The legal bar for eminent domain is public convenience and necessity. If this project cannot even secure a route through South Dakota, there is no necessity here. There is only a corporate emergency to secure federal tax credits. Summit is asking to use the power of the state of Iowa to bully landowners into easements for a project that may never be completed. Granting this modification would signal that Iowa is willing to be the path of least resistance for out-of-state private equity firms. We are not a sacrifice zone. If they cannot win in the Dakotas, they shouldn't be allowed to start digging in Iowa. Every foot of pipe laid represents a foot of land compromised. We are talking soil compaction that kills yields, destructions of drainage tile systems that took families and generations to build. If you grant this modification, you are authorizing the permanent damage of Iowa's most valuable resource for a project that is currently stalled by legal and legislative opposition across the Midwest. This commission's duty is to the public interest of Iowans, not the quarterly reports of a carbon capture company. They say a man's home is his castle, but in Iowa, a castle is our soil. For generations, Iowa families have been stewards of the most productive land on earth. We don't just own the land, we belong to it. But today, that bond is under assault. We are facing a new kind of taking. One where the sovereign power of the state is being handed over to private corporations. These companies want to carve through our fields with pressurized CO2 pipelines, not because the public needs a service, but because their shareholders want to harvest federal tax credits. Let's be clear, using eminent domain for private profit is not public use. It is betrayal of the Fifth Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Carter?
Another familiar face, Kathy Carter, Summit impacted landowner from Floyd County. I want to go back and review a little bit of the Summit history. The original marketing was that the project would remove dangerous CO2 emissions from our atmosphere. When we started researching it, their projected capture would equate to only slightly more than 1% of the total vehicles on the road in the US. In 2022, 2 companies were commissioned by Summit to do studies regarding future profits and jobs. Both of the completed studies contained disclaimers from those companies. The disclaimers stated all figures provided by Summit and all figures may not be accurate. One of those companies was fined by the SEC. An employee of the other company left their job there because they can no longer stomach the false information released by that company. So then the marketing changed to save ethanol to meet low carbon markets. The US has large export deals globally to more than 80 countries currently. Exports have hit record highs. According to Renewable Fuels Association, 800 million gallons of US ethanol are exported specifically to countries with clean fuel programs and CI reduction requirements. By 2024, the top 5 markets receive 75% of total US ethanol exports. Obviously, the markets are working without a CO2 pipeline cutting through the Midwest. This month, POET been named the official bioethanol partner of NASCAR, supplying high-octane, zero-carbon bioethanol. Their quote, "The bioethanol used is a clean burning fuel for racing while offering zero carbon intensity without a CO2 pipeline." From Summit's officers, lobbyists, and PR departments, the message became, save the corn growers. The pipeline would bring them higher prices for their corn. Actually, I wonder how many farmers are in that group of people. Recently, some real Iowa farmers randomly checked a dozen ethanol plants, a mixture of those partnered with and not partnered with Summit or with a CO2 pipeline. These farmers inquired about corn prices now and projected prices at harvest time. In every instance, the non-partnered plants are currently paying more per bushel, and the estimated prices at harvest time are also higher than the partnered plants. That's a pretty strong message about the supposed benefit of a CO2 pipeline. There's more, but I will end with this. All of this says what? That the marketing, the doublespeak, the backpedaling, the outright falsehoods, the heavy-handed pressure on landowners was all simply part of the strategy to convince you, legislators, and gullible Iowans that this project was a necessity. We all know better.
Thank you. Colleen Tucker.
Hi, my name is Colleen Tucker, and I'm a 5th-generation landowner from Mitchell County. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you, and thank you for those of you that are turning and looking at me. Although I wish I wouldn't have to be here again. The 3 of you have the power to stop this madness, and I truly hope that you are listening to us and let us get back to our lives. We all understand the definition of eminent domain. It is meant to be used sparingly and only for a clear public use and public necessity. This proposed CO2 pipeline is a private economic development project, and landowners across Iowa are being asked to surrender permanent property rights for a project that offers them no direct public service. Private investors will profit from this venture through taxpayer dollars. This means that landowners lose on both ends. First, by losing their property rights, plus they would be funding this venture through federal tax dollars. Condemnation should only be used when the public directly benefits from the service or infrastructure provided, resources that Iowans can actually use and rely on. What is the tangible public benefit of the CO2 pipeline? And actually, the CO2 is going to be leaving the state anyway. The risks are high that this project will not live up to the hype and that will end with empty promises. Eminent domain should not be granted based on unproven projections and that could result in unfulfilled commitments. Government is supposed to be the referee between the pipeline company and the landowner. Referees enforce the rules, and in this case, the Constitution of the United States. Please don't give this company an unfair advantage by granting eminent domain. Again, I ask, why should a private economic development project be allowed to override fundamental private property rights? This is a dangerous precedent that could encourage other unethical businesses to do the same. We need to maintain Iowa's reputation so that people will want to move into the state. So what is Iowa's goal here? Iowa should be promoting and supporting small businesses such as farmers because agriculture plays a crucial role in Iowa's economy. Does Iowa want to take away the plant food? That just doesn't make any sense. Protecting property rights does not stop progress, but when landowners are faced with the threat of eminent domain, the balance of power is shifted and landowners lose any control of fair negotiations with companies. Landowners are feeling left disrespected, given incomplete or misleading information, forced to negotiate under duress, and they're pressured to sign in unfair easements. Have you seen these easements that they're offering? It's disgraceful and unacceptable. Without legal representation, landowners would be exploited. Even with an attorney involved, there's going to be issues with the land that's been taken from us. Eminent domain was never intended to be used in a way that discriminates against property owners. I respectfully ask the IUC not to stretch or redefine eminent domain to fit this project. Please deny the requested amendments and consolidations, reject any attempt to fast-track the process, and revoke their permit until a truly viable and lawful business plan is presented. Please do the right thing and listen to the majority of Iowans. Thank you for listening and for your time.
Thank you. Mary Powell.
Good morning, Mary Powell. I'm here as an impacted landowner in Shelby County. I want to remind the IUC of what they stated in their final decision and order as posted on their website, June 25th, 2024. The commission ruling related to the 126 miles of proposed pipeline through Montgomery, Pottawatomie, Shelby, and Crawford counties in Iowa. On page 32 of your final decision, it states, Summit Carbon Solutions' alternate route between the main line and ethanol plants that did not minimize the overall length of proposed hazardous pipelines were eliminated from consideration as they did not meet the need for the proposed project. Summit asserts that the board had previously identified that increasing the total length of a pipeline in Iowa impacts more landowners and land. So going on, I had submitted a rebuttal at that time or an objection. Summit Solution has the ability to connect the Great Plains Pipeline in Shenandoah to the Poet Pipeline in Corning to the Poet Pipeline in Menlo. By doing so, they do not need the route through Pottawatomie, Montgomery, Shelby, and Crawford County, thus eliminating over 126 miles of pipeline through these counties. On page 439 of the IUB's ruling, it states routing Summit's carbon proposed hazardous pipeline in such a manner to connect participating ethanol plants to a single hazardous pipeline reduces the need for additional pipelines and reduces the burden to landowners. Using this same analogy as used in the above statement from the IUB, and in the IUB is in essence admitting that connecting the Green Plains plant in Shenandoah to the Poet plant in Corning, then to the Poet plant in Menlo, would be connecting participating ethanol plants into a single hazardous pipeline, reducing the need of additional pipelines and reducing the burden on landowners. I brought a copy of the map. I don't know if you see it when it's entered into the website. I'd like to leave it, but they can connect the plant here in Menlo to here in Corning to Shenandoah. They can eliminate all of this pipeline and this whole entire stretch of pipeline. So going with what you say, to use the smallest amount of pipeline to impact the least amount of landowners, you have the ability to make a decision to not impact over 126 miles of Iowa landowners. Please do the right decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Cynthia Hansen.
Good morning, Cynthia Hansen, Shelby County Century Farm, impacted by Summit, obviously. Phase 1 landowners are here in their 5th year and phase 2 in their 2nd year. lobbying over at the Capitol for legislation, and lobbying you to protect our property rights. My family has been farming and protecting our land for more than 126 years. How many years do we have to fight this particular battle? How many years are you going to give Summit to continue to harass landowners? Summit, by their own admission, has said that they cannot meet the conditions that were required on the permit. When will you tell them that their permit is pulled and stop this madness or make them start over? I ask that you deny their amendment requests, deny the consolidation of dockets, and deny expediting their application. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Junker.
Good morning. My name is Kim Junker. My husband is with me today, Ted. We are landowners and farmers. And, you know, I've traveled all over the United States. I've been to the East Coast, the West Coast, the Southern states, the Northern states. And I'm always it never ceases to amaze me at how we've been blessed here in Iowa with our rich farmland or productive farmland. You can go any place in this country and it's just not like Iowa. And I guess it's heartbreaking to me when I drive around Iowa and I see so much of our productive farmland being basically desecrated. Nowadays we have wind turbines, wind farms, solar installations. We have pipelines, transmission lines. Now data centers are coming on. Hydrogen is another thing. And I realize that we need energy. But I also think that we have to be very careful on how we cite these things. And I just urge you guys to really think about what you're doing and the impacts and the decisions that you make now and how you're going to affect our state's most valuable resource, which is our rich agricultural land. So I just wanted to say another thing is that I have a friend who moved here from Pennsylvania, and she was just so amazed when she moved here and saw our soils that she said in Pennsylvania, she worked with red clay soil all the time. And then I had another gentleman from Nebraska one time told me that you guys here in Iowa need to preserve your soils because I have to work with rocks and sand in Nebraska. And he was just thought Iowa was the best place. So I just urge you guys to think about your decisions, take them very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Reinig. Oh, okay. Apologies. No worries. Kathy Stockdale.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again today. I think you all know who I am. On Summit's application in HLP 2021-001 states that their goal is to go to North Dakota and to sequester the CO2. They testified under oath that this pipeline would be used only for sequestration and not for enhanced oil recovery and for climate change. On January 13th, Doyle Turner and I talked to Jake Ketzner and Bruce Rastetter at the Iowa State Capitol. In the conversation, Bruce states that the pipeline will be going through Nebraska to Wyoming for sequestration and for enhanced oil recovery. Although he evades the question on how they will get through Nebraska. For my last 2 minutes, I want to play that recording. Hopefully you can hear it.
I'm using it for enhanced in Wyoming.
Listen, we're happy to always talk about it, guys. And like, we just want to get out folks that don't want to.
Do you have an agreement?
We want your corn market to expand. This is some valuable funds, right? That plant will expand. And it won't.
Do you have an agreement with Tallgrass, or how do you plan on getting it up to Wyoming?
You plan on going to Wyoming.
Oh, yeah, with your own pipeline through.
We're still looking on
Nebraska.
But you're using it for enhanced oil.
We'll be using it for both direct and enhanced oil
So,
recovery.
if they use it for enhanced oil recovery, how does that lower the carbon index for the ethanol plant?
It doesn't re-release this technology. It's not re-released into the atmosphere.
But it doesn't lower the carbon index.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, same number, 32 points.
Everybody I've talked to that's an expert on that side of it says it doesn't.
You know, under California's low carbon fuel standard, it would go over 32 points.
What about under the Argonne?
What's that?
What about under Argonne? Argonne Labs.
I'm not familiar with that. Well, I mean, I can get, I'll follow up with you.
So that's basically the end. So it appears Summit is changing the whole purpose for their pipeline. This should require a whole new application. No amendments, no consolidation or fast tracking should even be considered. Summit continually changes their plan. Let's protect Iowa farmers.
Thank you. Sherry Webb.
Sherry Webb lives in Harrison County, Century Farm in Shelby County. And no, I'm not going to read all this stuff. So Mary Powell brought up the idea of that one section being taken out. I was going to talk about that today too, but I will not. I will tell you that that's about 315 acres in Shelby County, 315. I don't know that that's okay. And it's not just Shelby County. It would be across the state how many acres. The statistics are already staggering. We've lost 14,950 farms and 2,100,000 acres of farmland since 2023. And the USDA in 2024 reported 150,000 farms lost since 2017. There's a big rush for farmland right now. Why? Because there's an upside down pyramid. You've got 9% of the farmers under the age of 35, and more than that are over 65. So that's why they're just waiting for these older farmers to go under. The average age of an Iowa farmer right now is 57.6 years old. I know 78-year-old farmers that are farming. The United States has removed on average 4.3 acres of farmland from agriculture production every minute of every day for the last 22 years. This is not sustainable. We cannot keep taking land, putting data centers on it, developments on it, whatever the case may be, pipelines in it, which will ruin the land also. The smaller farms are going out of business and at a faster rate than ever because they can't afford the interest rates. Oops, sorry, I'll get it later. So I also wanted to talk about erosion, which is something I talked about during the hearing. The 6 million acres were eroded at twice the sustainable rate in 2007. The average sustainable rate that has been figured is 5 tons per acre. Erosion in Iowa averages 5.2 tons per acre. There's compelling evidence, thank you, that however the soil erosion runoff from cropland is far worse than the estimates suggest because it's flat and there's not always crops on it. I've got maps. I'm going to turn this in to the office so it can be put on the record. In May of 2007, May 5th through the 7th, there was a storm that passed over larger portions of southwest Iowa. I was there. According to the IDEP, the average erosion exceeded sustainable rates in 198 townships. On May 6th, the worst day, 182 townships encompassed 4.2 million acres, suffered erosion exceeding the sustainable rate for an entire year. In 69 townships, soil eroded at twice the sustainable rate for an average of 10 tons per acre. In 14 townships, the rate was more than 20 tons per acre.
Ms.
That's
Webb.
just one day.
Ms. Webb, you are at the end of your 3 minutes, but I'll let you finish up.
Okay, you're gonna let me finish?
Well, if
Okay.
you can wrap up fairly quickly.
All right,
yes,
I will
please.
put this on the docket. Hopefully you guys will look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But erosion is definitely an issue.
Jess Mazur.
Hi, my name is Jess Mazur. I work for the Sierra Club Iowa chapter, lifelong Iowan, live here in Des Moines, but my parents do live in Guthrie County, which is a impacted county. First off, I want to say, Josh, you mentioned earlier that we love learning all this stuff. I actually do love learning this stuff. So I just wanted to say that it actually does help kind of understand our electricity system and our utility system better. So I appreciate that. Also want to say that you see a lot of the same people every single month coming here. There's a lot more people than what the people that you see here. We're just lucky enough to be able to take off a day in the middle of the week and dedicate so much time to this. But there are so many people that if they could be here, they would, but they have jobs or they have people they need to take care of. So just know that we speak for many, many more that you don't see here. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I probably will. We don't want you to approve any sort of amendment for all the reasons that you've already heard. Summit's project and their amendment that they're proposing right now is a completely different project. It was capture and sequestration in North Dakota. Now it's capture and who knows what and who knows where. Because we're hearing Wyoming, we're hearing Nebraska with SAF, we're hearing EOR. I mean, we can't take any sort of request for a change seriously when we don't even have a simple answer like what's it going to be used for and where's it going. We also don't want any consolidation. You already decided that. It was asked, you denied it. Why are we even reconsidering that? And then no fast tracking. There's, clearly this would be the biggest use of eminent domain in Iowa history. There's no reason to fast track this when Summit can't even, get a majority of easements along their routes. Other thing I want to talk about that relates back to this pipeline explosion that happened in Washington County. Obviously, we know it's very different than if a CO2 pipeline ruptured. When this pipeline ruptured, there was fire and explosion. When the CO2 pipeline ruptures, we're going to have a gas and no fire. But there are a lot of similarities and things that we're interested in because we're kind of curious if this continues to go forward, are we going to be in this situation in 10 years? So we know in some of the immediate reporting that came out, it said the first responders weren't even sure which pipeline it was. That's kind of terrifying that there's so many nearby, we don't even know which one it is. What kind of EMS response do you send if you don't know what the product is? I mean, that's really concerning. I mean, what was the response? Did EMS know exactly what, material was out there and how to respond? How long did it take to make that decision? We're assuming it's an aging pipeline, knowing that this was one that hadn't been permitted for a long time. So what caused it? Is it corrosion, well failure, farming, any sort of digging or excavation? We're really curious to know what caused that, because if it's just age of pipe, then that is something that's probably in our future if this project moves forward. Who's at fault? Kind of curious about that. How long did it take to burn out? I know that they said that how long it took them to get the fire under control, but how long did it take them to close those valves and isolate it and get everything burned out? All of those kind of questions.
Ms. Mazur, you are at the end of your 3 minutes.
That
so
went
if you
really
could wrap
fast.
it up pretty quickly.
Just a couple more questions. How did it happen that it was unpermitted for so long? How often was it inspected? When was the most recent inspection of it? Who does those inspections? I think someone already kind of answered that today. But we would like to have some more information at the next month's meeting about that because we're following it very closely. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of my list. Just making sure I didn't miss anyone who would like to speak. Okay. And anything else from the commissioners for today? Okay. Thank you for coming to the monthly meeting today. Our next meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. on Wednesday, March 18th. Information on the meeting, the agenda, and a virtual link will be available on the commission's website and on our hearing and meeting calendar. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.